Parents of grown children, what do you regret about the way you raised your child? I have one that my father told me. He always regretted how poor he was and how often he couldn't provide for us, and how he wished he could have done more. My parents were divorced when I was 2 and I saw him every other weekend, so he felt like he didn't have enough time to really bond with me. That was his take on it. I just remember sitting in the car Monday before school making our lunches on the dashboard, and I got to have those little bags of Cheetos, which was really awesome. My butthole mom sprang it on him that he'd have to take us to school Monday when he had no food in the house, so he had to buy some early Monday. He taught me how to cut up vegetables for soup with a little paring knife, and showed me how to cut around the bad parts and use all of the good parts. We got a lot of stuff from the food bank which was on the edge of spoiling. He taught me how to use basic carpentry tools and how to build a flower box and an aquarium stand. He was part of a gardening club as well as an aquarium club, so he would build stuff to sell to the other members. We compared notes after I grew up, and it really shocked him to realize that some of his perceived failings were some of my most cherished memories. I don't know what to say. It's both beautiful and sad at the same time. First they told me not to get him diagnosed because that would pigeonhole him as special needs. Then they reported me to CPS for neglecting to have him diagnosed. Once diagnosed, I tried to advocate for him, give him a small quiet dark place to regroup in, and I was reported the CPS for locking my disabled child in a closet. Dude, he hollowed out the linen closer himself and went there himself when upset. I was just paying attention. He wouldn't eat his lunches. They said to let him make his own lunches. Then reported me for sending him with nothing but junk. They ruined his school experience by forcing him into all these social interactions that meant nothing to him. They were trying to play fetch with a cat, and it wasn't until he was in high school that I looked up the law and got him the frick away from the idiots. Meanwhile, I have a 3-inch thick CPS file and will never be able to foster. That hurts me just reading it. I wish I'd got down on the floor and played Lego etc with them more when they were under 7. It really builds a bond. Just simple fun time together, rather than me supervising my 2 boys playing together with one eye on my phone or laptop. My parents never played with me. They worked a lot, and also it was not a thing for parents to do back then. I don't think it affected the way I relate to them, if it is of any consolidation. I have 4 kids quite spread out in age. I regret being too tough on my oldest. You learn to chill out a bit and that everything isn't so critical. I wish I'd spend more time with them versus working crazy hours. I used to yell and scold my daughter, often. Conversations with my daughter were usually me scold her because of something she did wrong. Every morning started off with me scolding her. She's grown now and I think our relationship was damaged by my constant negativity around her. The thing that saddens me most about my relationship with my mother is I didn't expect her to be perfect, and she knows she wasn't, but she's completely incapable of owning that in front of her children. It makes it hard to be open with her about anything when she's so defensive. Father of 2 teenagers, I decided long ago that everyone fricks their kid up in some way. It can't be avoided, and it's rarely the big decisions that do it. It will end up being that small comment you made on some idle Tuesday, one you don't remember but sticks with them the rest of their life. But you can decide how they won't be fricked up. My kids won't be fricked up cause I didn't tell them I loved them enough. They won't be fricked up cause I didn't go to their baseball games or plays. They won't be fricked up cause I didn't believe in them. I can choose how they won't be fricked up. The rest, once they become an adult, that's for their therapist to figure out. My very first gilded comment. Thanks, kind stranger. Dang straight. Once, when I said I felt pretty, which I didn't very often, my mother said, but you're not. She denies it. I know she loves me, but goddang I am never going to forget that. I guess the important thing for you to take from that is that I agree. 2-month-old daughter beside me, here to take notes. 3-month-old son at home. I'm here for the same reason. I never gave my son the chance to prove himself. I was very much conscious about him, and today is the day he is away from me. Today is the day he can't face the world like others do, because I never let him out to face the world. As a child of a workaholic father who was never there and an alcoholic mother, do not leave your child to look after a parent who is passed out drunk on the sofa. Also spend any spare time with our children instead of ignoring them. I had to fend for myself a lot until I was 14. My mum has since got sober, apologized for what she did, and our relationship is repaired, but the one with my dad is still very strained and fractured. I just want to contribute this, as the child of an abusive mother who walked out when I was 13, which resulted me being in the care system. It is good that you guys contributing here can admit to wishing having done things differently, and I have respect for that. When I was 16, I went back to live with my mum for a short time as my foster parent was ill. She never apologized for anything, continued to be the most manipulative person I have ever met, and painted herself as the victim constantly. I hear she is currently ill with cancer, and whilst her side of the family pushed aside their views of her as a nasty, irresponsible waste of space to take care of her, they have since took to being dongs to me on social media for not taking care of her. They are just as selfish as each other really, and they are probably resentful that they have to take care of her. From what I have heard, she is still playing the victim of my children won't speak to me. Whatever did I do wrong? They are terrible people. Some people are deluded beyond repair. I guess what I am trying to say is, I have respect for you guys here for coming forward and saying how you wish you had done things differently. Parent here. My daughter is 13. Look, it's not like they come out with instructions. I regret a lot of things I've done. I've yelled when I shouldn't have, been exhausted and taken it out on her, not being supportive of something she loves. Good lord, I wish I could have a really sometimes. I'm not perfect, but one thing, just this one thing, every day I tell her, I love you, no matter what. It's our saying, hers and mine. And a few days ago, when I effed up, I apologized and of course, felt like the crappiest mother in the world. When she hugged me, she said, I love you, no matter what, and you know, it's the truest, most unconditional love I've ever felt. I hope she feels that from me too. I have to say, as a daughter of a single mother for a long time, her sharing her frustrations and sometimes taking it out on me was part of life. It teaches us kids that parents, like everyone else, do not have infinite patience for our crap. I honestly think it's a great lesson to learn. A little regret of mine. I raised 3 sons with my ex-husband. While the ex and I did argue, it was when they weren't home, or quietly bitching behind closed doors. We provided them a huge home, yard, activities. Each kid had his own TV, VCR, PlayStation, Sega, Nintendo and phones. Mind you, not super high-end luxury, but dang, each kid had it made. When my youngest was 10, the marriage fell apart. I was hoping to hold it together till he graduated, but that pain in the buttocks made it too hard for me to cope, so I bailed out, moved on. We divorced, not bitterly. My 3 sons all came to me months afterward to comment on my happiness and attitude, and they all asked the same question. Mom, you were obviously so unhappy with X. Why did you stay together so long? I did it for them. I put up with X's horseshit so that my kids could have the same bedrooms, school, friends and life. I regret not being able to do it all by myself. I would have left earlier if I could. Everyone is all grown up, moved on and happy. I'm a grandma now. Usually kids can tell if their parents are only together for them. Most of them aren't very happy about it. Grown child. Turn off the goddamn TV. Seriously, my mom has wasted so much time. From when she gets home from work to when she goes to bed, watching TV. Now I spend most of my time in my room on my computer or with my friends. Dad's an out of work workaholic trying to start his own business. I'm a manic depressive college student. Manic depressive college student. Guess who that is, brain? I was very strict with my oldest son. His mother was a drunk and there was no way our household would have managed without a pretty solid schedule and routine. He was babysitting his little brother and sister at 10 years old. He was making dinner most nights by that time. I depended on him to help out quite a bit while he was much too young for that kind of responsibility. He was in his late teens when I finally managed to get his mother sober. So, because of that, we never had a very good relationship and were never very close. He blamed me for a lot of things that were mostly his mother's fault, and she was manipulative and hateful when it suited her. There is no way to repair that damage. It really bothers me because I still cannot think of any other way I could have managed to keep the family off the streets. His diet. I was a single mom going through college when he was a toddler. Our meals consisted of a pot of spaghetti to get us through the week. I'm not sure why I didn't know any better to introduce fresh fruits and veggies at the time. It wasn't until I married someone who loved to cook for my son to even try new things. He's a very healthy eater now, but I still regret not feeding him healthier foods in his childhood. It's easy to have regrets. Parenting is continually riddled with self-doubt. My only big thing is that I wish I had remained single instead of remarrying. I thought my daughters needed a good dad. What they got was a distracted mom and instability. I had underestimated my ability to raise them well on my own. One strong mama is better than turmoil under the roof. It's not like that for everyone, of course, just my experience. Even with that, they learn and grow and make their own mistakes. And mama does too. As the son of a single mother, and as someone who was exposed to volatile adult relationships at a young age, you're very much correct in your assessment. However, as long as your daughters knew you loved them and they trusted you, then it's not a huge deal. Not the mother, but the child. My mother was always dieting. I wound up being a fat kid, but would try to diet as well. I always gained it back, until I finally figured it out in my 20s. Mum would say offhanded mean things to me like, "Those pants make your legs look like stuffed sausages." I'll never forget that. My dad worked a very stressful job, managing a data center. He was pretty strict and often angry. We never got close until he retired, left that job behind forever, and could finally have time to relax and be happy. We're much closer now. Mom is, Mom. At least she can't comment on my weight, now. This. My mum has always had a strange relationship with food and always asked if I've been to the gym or not. She even called me a pig once. Was always a chubby kid and I overeat when I get stressed. Currently 21 now, trying to sort out my weight. Got divorced. It definitely affected them. So many things, souls have been different. Not a parent, but I have a very superficial relationship with my dad. I just can't hold a conversation with him. I'm almost 30, the oldest of his 6 children, and he has no idea who I am. He left for work before I got up for school and returned home after I was in bed. Never really saw him during the week until I was 13 and he was made redundant from his job and he started his own business from home. Even then he was grumpy and taciturn. Time spent together was doing things he liked in a group with my other sisters. If I wasn't good at the activity he chose, hunting, fishing etc., he was really critical. I never had alone time with him, and any time spent with him was full of criticism and being forced to do things I neither liked nor was good at. Give your time. Connect with your kid. My mum did, and still does. I love her more than my dad. I often wonder about when my mom started resenting me. As I've gotten older, I realize that every time I have shared good news about my life, raise at work, going on a trip, etc., it's always met with a "well, that must be nice" or a "glad you get to go do that." I never want to tell her anything anymore because I feel like she doesn't like it when my life is going well. I tried to teach my kids to eat right, but I guess I didn't try hard enough. They're 15 and 12 and eat nothing but processed junk. I won't buy the stuff, but unfortunately my wife does. I think a lot of people eat poorly in their teens and early 20s. Eventually a lot of us have more refined tastes and start to eat healthier. All hope is not lost, but teaching them some basic cooking skills will speed the process along. I still love pizza rolls, though. I know that my parents regret listening to my teachers too much. I once met a guy while at an awesome outdoor bar in Hong Kong that ended up with both of us in tears. He told me of an early first marriage that produced a son that he was incredibly hard on. After he was divorced and then sent to Iraq and came back to remarry and have a couple of daughters with the new wife, did he realize that he treated his son so badly? When I talked with him, he knew he treated his son terribly but didn't know how to fix it. I remember telling him that a phone call could accomplish a lot. He said through tears that his son won't answer his phone anymore. Thank you to all who have shared their experiences. Being a parent is not easy. I question myself daily on how I can provide my 19-month-old boy with the correct upbringing and life skills so that he can live a happy and fulfilling life. It's stressful. At the same time as raising a child or children, you also have to adult in life. If this means you had to work crazy hours or you snapped at your child due to frustration, everything you did from the day they were born was for them. But thank you for the insight on your personal experiences. It's been a lovely read for me. I would have said yes more often. I was always saying no, you can't have that, do this, go there, watch TV, play video games. I would have gone more places with them. It just seemed so overwhelming at the time. I would have given them more chores, would not have obsessed about their reading. For God's sake, some kids are just not readers. I would have had more laughs with them. My mom regrets not leaving my dad and staying with him for 7 years. They lived in separate bedrooms while barely speaking to each other. My brothers and I may have lost my dad if she had moved out, but we knew they were both miserable. She left him 18 months ago and is much happier, but is still self-conscious about her decisions. My daughter is only 2, but something my mom passed down me is negative body image. My mom was, still kind of is, a dieting exercise freak. She spent her teenage years in the 80s, which was a time of bad dieting practices. Actually, she was bulimic in my early childhood. I caught her making herself throw up a couple times. My mother is a very beautiful woman, but I recall a lot of times she would shame her body out loud in front of the mirror. When I became a teenager, I was in pretty good shape but was always constantly pointing my flaws out and was ashamed of my body and didn't feel good about myself. Now 6 years later, with a baby and 90 pounds heavier, I look back at all those pictures from high school and wonder why the heck I thought I was ugly or fat. It has taken me years to accept my body has changed, to understand that a number on a scale does not define beauty. Also that eating and thinking healthy is the best I can do for myself and my daughter. I don't ever want her to feel less than beautiful. It comes to show you that your children are always watching you. My mother has told me for years that she feels guilty for how she treated me sometimes. Single mom with anger issues and stress of never having enough money. I told her yes, there were some rough times both physically and emotionally, but I never felt unloved. She always cries when I tell her I forgive her. She never made me feel unwanted or a burden. She let me be a kid, but I also learned to make adult decisions and be responsible. She got a better job working nights at a hospital, so I was home alone all night from 4th grade until 7th grade. Got myself up and dressed for school. Sometimes I would see her for about 20-30 minutes in morning before I caught bus. I remind her about the times she would call me from work to see if I had anything major going on at school. If I didn't, she would let me skip school and we would go to movies or shopping or whatever. I remind her often that I have no regrets about my childhood. I'm 45 and we are still best friends. That I raised them in separate households. Their mom and I divorced when they were pretty young. I know as much as anybody that an intact household doesn't necessarily guarantee productive offspring, especially if the home environment is abusive or emotionally toxic. My ex and I weren't getting along, but our discord was hardly abusive and not very toxic. But I have to say, in looking back, maybe if my ex and I had endured our comparatively minor differences a little longer, maybe, just maybe, we could have made our kids' maturing experience a little better. And it's not that my kids didn't turn out great. They did. They both graduated college with hard science degrees, and somehow both managed to find jobs in the tech industry in this crappy economy. It's just that there were a lot of times I wished I could have been there for them more often than one weeknight a week and alternate weekends with them. I really do feel that I could have added even more to their positive development. I can't prove this, of course. It's just something that has always nagged at the back of my head. How much better off would my kids have been if my ex and I could have just choked back our respective immaturities a little bit longer? Sometimes, I actually catch myself thinking that maybe we should have held off our differences and divorced shortly after the kids left the house like they used to in the old days. I don't lose much sleep over it, though. It's just when you're a parent, you're always trying to think of how you can do better. But I don't have a lot of guilt. Regret, maybe, but not guilt. Since my kids were lucky enough to turn out great, this is all mostly just a thought experiment these days. Kept me up some nights when they were younger, though. I couldn't even imagine my kids only seeing dad every other weekend. He's so good with them. He is everything I'm not. Even when we seriously talk about splitting, we have highs and lows. I can't imagine how we could do it. We'd have to live in a duplex or something. Lol. Not a parent, but my dad taught me how to light my hand on fire with rubbing alcohol when I was 10. This comes in handy when you want to prove to the other kids you're not a wuss. Not sure if it counts since it's a perspective from a child, but one day our family dog was taken away for a BS reason. I said to my mother, "I'm crying on the inside," and she told me shut up and made fun of me. I was very young, around 9. I never opened up to my mother again emotionally. Also, just wanted to add that I have a very good relationship with her, but I never share anything personal with her anymore. I've never understood why it's expected to be open with one's parents. Going through this thread hoping to see someone who sounds like my mom say something like, "Gee, I really wish I'd taken an interest in at least one of his hobbies so I could relate to something about him as an adult. My mom really has no interest in me as a person, and it's something that bothers the frick out of me every day. I don't know how it doesn't bother her. That she was an only child, that my relationship with my mom was so poor the whole time, and has gotten worse, that I didn't have a sister or a female cousin living close who could be a role model for her, that I took until they were teenagers for me to realize how close she and her then male friend, later boyfriend now husband really were, and how smart he really is. Never enough time for great vacations. I have a great relationship with my adult daughter. My biggest regret is that we didn't travel much when she was younger. Financial pressures were pretty heavy back then. I wish I'd been more patient, less uptight and less aggressive. It was unnecessary and none of us enjoyed the very young years until I realized how unhappy we all were and changed things. Luckily my boys don't recall too much and they understand how tough things were for me back then. They've grown into 2 fantastic men who helped me raise my youngest, but it's because of the nurture and not the discipline that things worked out okay. My mom said that she wished she would have shown more patience toward me when I was learning how to do things. She gets frustrated easily, and especially doing things like cooking. It was just far easier and faster for her to do it than to let me figure it out. Driving was another nightmare. To this day I cannot drive with her in the car. It's too stressful. She nitpicks every little thing and it makes me have a panic attack. No wonder I'm so self-critical and nervous all the time. I don't know how to relax. You have been visited by the healthy spirit of exercise. Boy, you will burn all calories today. If you comment "Blessed be the health hound," like and subscribe, you magnificent person.